So we have three logical containers in terms of CQL. From now on, if I say SQL, it is CQL, not SQL, because we are all in a Cassandra training or session, whatever. So we have the cluster, which contains all the nodes, even across WAN, across data centers. And then we have key space. Think of key space as something like schema in MySQL. Yeah, it's like a container for all your tables. And then you have a table. But when they say table in SQL, they're not actually talking about table, they're talking about column family. And here is another fuck up when it comes to Cassandra. What they do is they actually show you a table, and you think you're dealing with table all the time, but behind the scenes you're not even dealing with tables, you're dealing with something called the column family, which is a very different kind of beast. And that leads to some problems, which you're going to see very soon. Okay, we are halfway there. One more hour, and I'll try and wrap it up by 9, with obviously some time for Q&A. So the second part is primarily going to go into the details of how an installation would primarily look like, what are the tools available, and how do you write SQL queries, Cassandra query language queries. Okay, yeah, you can download it from there, or you can get it from the USB stick I just distributed. Well, when you download DSC, which is DataStax Community, which is the free version without any license that you can go to production with, you see this, all these directories in there. In the bin, you find all the important ones. The one for starting Cassandra is Cassandra itself. SQL shell is the, SQL shell, makes sense as the name suggests. Node tool is the one for, it's a management tool for managing your cluster, for repairing nodes, adding nodes to the cluster, removing nodes from the cluster, and then doing a lot more operational maintenance work. An SS table loader is a tool that you can use for bulk loading data into Cassandra directly into SS tables. It's a very neat tool. One of the projects I'm working on right now, which is also a new style, I would say, across several database vendors, is that if you want to load massive amount of data, you don't go via SQL. What you do is you just directly create the files that are being created by your database. So you directly create SS tables, thereby creating data, and then you're much faster. You're just doing file writes. And then the last one is SS table upgrade. That is used when you you want to upgrade from one version of SS table to another. Well, most probably we won't be needing it right now. Under the configuration, these are the, most of the important files, most of the important configurations that we will talk about or have talked about can be found in cassandra.yaml. It's quite extensively documented. So for each one line of property, you'd see about 10-15 lines of comment. It's quite self-explanatory. If not, you can go to DSC website. Cassandra stress. Well, the funny thing is, under tools directory, you'd find a list of tools which are not there in the bin directory. Cassandra stress is one such tool, which is quite useful. You will see in the upcoming slides. It's used for running some stress test. We'll go a bit more into detail for, and then there's also another interesting tool over here, JSON to SS table and SS table to JSON. So you can expose your data as JSON and vice versa. That's the tool for doing that. And then the token generator obviously generates tokens for you, depending upon what kind of algorithm that you like. You can choose, the default one is Murmur 3. Okay, now agents. Agents are things that you need for your Cassandra installation to actually communicate with the outside world, with another application. What I have done, for example, is that, this is a snapshot of my local installation. As you can see, I have a local cluster with 3 nodes, node 1, 2, and 3, very inventive names. And then I have 3 agents, agent 1, 2, and 3 for those 3 nodes. What they do is they will communicate with agent nodes 1, 2, and 3 with other applications. And in my case, the one that I played with was OpsCenter. OpsCenter is a management tool. It's a monitoring and operational or administrative tool. What's in the name? Whatever you want to see it like it. But that tool is running on a different server, and it wants to communicate with all the nodes in your cluster. For each node, you have an agent, and all those agents talk to the OpsCenter. You will see that also in the upcoming slides. CCM, Cassandra Cluster Manager. It's a very, very important tool when you're developing applications with Cassandra. One of the things that you have to really take into account is CCM is for development purposes only. You cannot use CCM to go live or do any real work, you know, because for that you have the node tool, you have the OpsCenter. This is for creating local clusters. If you are starting development with Cassandra, you cannot ask your company to give you 3 computer machines or whatever it is to create a cluster. You can't ask for a cloud service. So without having that luxury, which is my case, what I wanted to do is I wanted to create a local cluster and simulate all those things on my local machine, and then propagate that configuration into a real cluster. And that is where CCM, Cassandra Cluster Manager, comes into play. It's actually written by a French guy called Sylvain, and it is written in Python. You can check out the source code over there. You can do pip and then upgrade it. Well, one of the things that you have to take into account is let's go into details, right? First one is where I'm actually creating a test cluster. So this particular statement says CCM create. Before I go in there, let me tell you this. CCM is a meta tool, which means it does not give you all the functionalities that it provides by itself. What a meta tool should do, what it does is that it contacts other tools provided by Cassandra software itself, like the node tool, like the stress tool, like, you know, the other tools that we just saw. It invokes them behind the scenes to actually give you the results, which is why you can actually propagate your local configuration into a real cluster. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating a cluster with the name test on the version 218. So it'll actually download that version 218 on your local machine, and it has 2 nodes, and -s means start immediately, and -d means on a debug mode. And then what will happen is that it'll I did CCM, and this is my local machine, and then I went to the SQL shell, and then I said I wanted to know what version of Cassandra I'm running. So there's this show command which will actually show you the version of Cassandra, as you can see, and the name of my cluster is demo cluster, not the test cluster, as you saw on the previous screen. Until version 2, Cassandra was using Thrift protocol, but then after that they ditched Apache Thrift and then started to implement their own native protocol. That's why you see the native protocol v3 over there. And the other thing that you have to understand is that Cassandra not just uses, it still supports Thrift, but the nodes communicate with each other using Apache's Gossip protocol. Details of which you can just Google and find more about Thrift, Gossip, and all these protocols.